All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order. I guess first of all, welcome to everyone, and another year is come and gone. Just a wee bit more of that great stuff. Anyway, life's like that. Very good. All right, I'll introduce the committee to start, and I'm just going to take it in the order that we have, and thank you, Charlotte. Appreciate that. I'm Mr. Robertson, and we have Councillor Yeo, and we have Ms. Richardson, Mr. Strangway, and Mr. Erickson. And members of staff present, we've got Manager of Planning, Ms. Berry. We've got Ms. Evans, Planner 2, Ms. Peck, Planner 2. We've got Mr. Lahi, the Secretary Treasurer, and our Recording Secretary, Ms. Crockford. And remotely, I'm advised, we have our Chief Building Official, Ms. Murchison. So again, welcome everyone. As required under the Planning Act. Pardon? Oh, all right, yeah. All right, as required under the Planning Act, a public meeting is being held prior to the committee making a decision on these applications. Got a little ahead of myself there. Well, it is the beginning of a new year. All right. I would like, are there any comments or questions with respect to the agenda? All right, can I get a motion on the floor then to adopt the agenda as printed? Mr. Strangway, Mr. Erickson, any further comments or questions? All those in favor? And that carries, thank you. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Being none, before I ask for a motion, are there any comments or questions with respect to the minutes of the last meeting? Being none, can I get a motion on the floor then? Ms. Richardson, Councillor Yeo, any further comments or questions? All those in favor? And that carries, thank you. For the benefit of everyone involved, the committee will hear comments, gather information, and may ask questions to clarify statements made. The committee may ask and answer questions or redirect questions to the appropriate person. Please note that any information or comments given to the committee during this meeting, they are considered evidence. We will first hear from staff, then the applicant or his or her agent. We will then hear from any person in support of or from those who have questions, concerns, or are opposed to the application. Finally, the applicant or his or her agent will have an opportunity to respond to any of the statements made to the committee. If you do wish to speak and you're on virtual, I would appreciate it when you come on the screen if you'd give us your name. We will afford you 10 minutes to speak. Most people are far shorter than that, but we will if you find you need the 10 minutes, or if you find that perhaps you need even more than the 10 minutes, I will ask the committee if they would afford you a couple of more minutes. I don't think that's ever happened. Most people are much shorter than that with their presentations. Having said all that, we will move to file number D20-2022-082, and this is 6369 Highway 35, Geographic Township of Somerville. Ms. Evans, go ahead, please.
Thank you. The subject property, being 6369 Highway 35, is zoned Rural General Zone under the Township of Somerville Zoning Bylaw 78-45 and is designated rural under the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan. The subject property is located west of Highway 35 and east of Balsam Lake. The area is comprised of rural and residential properties of varying sizes. The subject property is 13.76 hectares or 34 acres in size and is a corner lot located at the intersection of Highway 35 and Lightning Point Road. The majority of the property is heavily treed and contains an unevaluated wetland which was delineated by Cambium Inc. Through the wetland delineation process, a developable area of approximately 1.5 hectares was identified. The property is currently vacant and a single detached dwelling and detached garage are proposed. The purpose of this application is to facilitate the construction of a detached garage. Section 18.1.3A of the zoning bylaw permits a maximum lot coverage of 8% of the lot area to a maximum of 225 square meters for accessory structures that are accessory to residential uses. The proposed garage is 468.82 square meters in size and is outlined in red on the sketch on the slide. Additionally, section 18.1.3b of the bylaw permits a maximum height for accessory structures of 5 meters, and the proposed height for the garage is 6.4 meters. The garage will be used for storage, including recreational vehicles such as a mobile home and a larger boat. Looking to some construction drawings now. On the top of the slide, we have the left and right elevations, and on the bottom, we have a cross-section of the proposed garage. Now on the top of the slide, we have the front elevation of the garage, and on the bottom is the back or rear elevation. The photo on the left was taken from close to the road, looking down into the clearing where development is proposed, being here, this clearing. And though it was difficult to capture the size of the property or the cleared area in a single photo, the photo on the right is my attempt at showing the size of that cleared area. And just for some context, that yellow star on the photo on the right shows where I was standing when I took the photo on the left, so looking down from the road into that clearing. The photo on the left was taken at the entrance of the clearing, looking east towards Highway 35, and the photo on the right was taken at the entrance to that same clearing, looking west. The extra lot coverage and height for the proposed garage is required to accommodate the larger vehicles that are to be stored in it. The subject property is surrounded on all sides by thick vegetative buffers, which effectively screen the property from the road as well as neighboring lots. Additionally, the proposed garage is set back 127.1 meters from the front lot line. No adverse impacts to the neighborhood are anticipated due to the presence of the vegetative buffers and the setback from the front lot line. Looking to the official plan, low-density residential uses along with accessory uses are anticipated within the rural designation, and performance and siting criteria is implemented through the zoning bylaw. Looking to the zoning bylaw, the rural general zone permits a variety of rural uses, including single detached dwellings and associated accessory structures. In this case, as agricultural uses are not proposed, the main or primary use on the subject property will be residential. The zoning bylaw defines an accessory use as a use subordinate and naturally, customarily, and normally incidental to and exclusively devoted to a main use of land or building and located on the same lot. As an accessory use is devoted to the main use of the land, being residential in this case, the proposed garage is considered an accessory structure that is accessory to the residential use, and therefore Section 18.1, accessory buildings, structures, and uses applies to the proposed garage instead of the provisions of the rural general zone. As a different example, if the proposed building was a barn instead of a garage, meant to be used for agricultural purposes, the provisions of the rural general zone would apply instead of Section 18.1. As per Section 18.1, the total lot coverage of all accessory buildings and structures shall not exceed 8% of the lot area to a maximum of 225 square meters. While the lot coverage of the proposed garage would only be 0.3% of the total lot area, buildings that are accessory to a residential use that are located on rural properties are not exempt from this 225 square meter maximum, despite the larger lot sizes found in rural areas. And therefore, the variance is required to permit the garage to exceed this 225 square meter maximum. Additionally, the maximum height for an accessory structure is 5 meters, and the proposed garage is 6.4 meters. One of the intentions of this provision is to restrict the height of an accessory building to ensure the use is subordinate to the primary use. The requested 1.4 meters in height would be negligible when viewing the building from Lightning Point Road, as the proposed dwelling is to be approximately 9.75 meters in height. The dwelling will still be the taller of the two buildings. The proposed garage is to be adequately set back from property lines. Additionally, the extensive vegetative buffer provides visual screening from the road as well as neighboring properties. There are no anticipated impacts on environmental features, neighboring properties, or the function of the right-of-way. Comments were received from the supervisor of Part 8 sewage system stating that a review of the property indicates there is sufficient room to install a Class 4 sewage system to the current standards. As such, the Building and Septic Division has confirmed they have no issue with the endorsement of the proposed minor variance as it relates to private on-site sewage disposal. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance, and staff respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified within the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Questions of the planner? Ms. Richardson, go ahead.
Through you, this is an accessory building. Currently, it's accessory to nothing as there's no dwelling. So when will the dwelling be constructed?
I think it would be appropriate for the applicant to discuss further the order in which he will be constructing the dwelling versus the garage.
You hold that thought. Councillor Yeo?
Thank you, and through you, and maybe this will be better for the applicant as well, but it's a huge accessory building, so I'm wondering, and you probably don't know this, but what the intent of it is, given the allowance of cannabis and production and stuff on the property, so maybe that's better suited for the applicant too. But.
Through the chair, the proposed use for the garage, rather, is the storage of larger recreational vehicles, so a larger boat, mobile home. So that's the reason that they are requesting this relief to go bigger than what the zoning bylaw would permit. No agricultural uses are proposed.
Perhaps we can wait and see what he has to say. Yep. Anything further of committee members to the planner? All right. Is the applicant online? Does the applicant wish to speak to the application? And your name, sir?
Good afternoon, everybody. It's Tom DeBoer with TD Consulting. I have heard Catherine's report, and I appreciate for the very thorough report. And apparently there's a couple of questions, and I think I've got both of them answered. Number one, the owner has sort of held back. I actually do have the building permit package sitting on my desk for the dwelling. And as applicable law would state that the dwelling has to be constructed first prior to the accessory. It was just making sure that he could achieve the accessory building in concert with the proposed single detached dwelling. And then the intent of the detached garage that we're speaking of right now will be for both an RV and a larger size boat. It has every intent to just be for accessory sort of uses to his own personal uses. So if there's any other questions or concerns, please let me know.
All right. Thank you for that, sir. Councillor Yeo, go ahead.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. Currently, there's a bunch of metal shipping containers on the property. Is there a plan for those? Do you know?
So the current owner of the property is actually a contractor. He was the one that cleared it himself. He will ultimately also be the builder for the both the garage and the dwelling. So my understanding is some of those sea containers may have, and I'm not saying 100%, but should have materials for the construction of a new dwelling.
Follow up?
And there's a plan for them going forward? There's nothing on the site plan or anything?
To be right. So the intent is for them to be removed upon construction processes.
Anything further, the applicant? All right. Thank you, sir. We appreciate that. Is there anyone online wishing, wishing to speak in support of this application? In support of this application? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Opposition to the application? All right. Being none. Committee, where are we? Mr. Strangway?
Move for approval of the application.
All right, do I have a seconder? Mr. Erickson? Excuse me. Any further comments or questions? Councillor Yo.
Understanding that the applicant has stated that it would be built after the single dwelling, I wonder if that should be a condition, or is that just maybe through the chief building official, that just bluntly won't be allowed?
All right. Do we have the chief building official online? Welcome, Ms.
Apologies, I
Murchison.
just joined, so I might need to be caught up.
Did you hear the question?
I heard the question, but I'm not familiar with which agenda item we're on because I just joined, unfortunately.
All right, we're talking about, excuse me, the property at, where are we, 6369 Highway 35. File number D20-2022-082. And I'll have Councillor Yo ask his question again, just so we're all clear on that. Go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, my question is, it's an accessory building, and we're basically allowing the accessory building to be built. And there's nothing in the conditions that pertains to the it being built before or after the dwelling, which is permitted. So my question is, does that have to be a condition, or will your office just ensure that that will not happen?
Through the chair, if we receive applications for both a principal use, which would be the dwelling, and an accessory use, we will hold the accessory use permit from being issued until the principal use is issued. But I'm not opposed to anything being added as a condition just to make sure we don't miss that.
Councillor Yo, I think that might be a good idea then.
Yeah, I'd like
Leave it
to
up
add
you.
a condition, if I could, that the accessory building permit be issued after satisfactory, I won't say completion, but satisfactory, that the building department is satisfied that the single-family dwelling has been satisfied.
Mr. Strangway, are you okay with that as a friendly?
Yes, that's fine.
Mr. Erickson? All right, so as amended then, all right. Anything further, comments or questions, committee? All right. A motion, it's as printed, as amended, printed and amended. So we've got the motion on the floor. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. Your application is approved with an amendment, sir. Moving right along, we're dealing with file number D20-2022-087. And this is 34 Flint Street, Geographic Township of Fenland. Ms. Peck, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As mentioned, this application pertains to the property municipally addressed as 34 Flint Street, located in the Geographic Township of Fenland, hereinafter referred to as the subject property. The subject property is zoned Limited Service Residential, Exception 1, under the Township of Fenland zoning bylaw, and is designated waterfront under the City of Kawartha Lake's official plan. An exception zone in this case only pertains to permitting a vacation dwelling on the subject property. The applicant is seeking relief from the required front yard setback to facilitate the construction of a detached garage. The subject property is located west of Sturgeon Point Road along the northeast shores of Sturgeon Lake. The area is comprised of rural and shoreline residential properties of varying sizes. The subject property is about half an acre in size and is located along Flint Street, a private road that is unassumed and unmaintained by the city. The property is located close to the south extent of this dead-end road. The termination of Flint Street is represented by the gate shown in Figure 2, and I will point to it kind of over here. The property's interior lot lines are heavily treed, and at present, a fence separates the lot from the traveled portion of Flint Street, as shown in both Figure 1 and 2 above. The property currently contains a vacation dwelling and 2 sheds. Section 3.1.2.2 of the Fenland bylaw states that a detached accessory building may be erected no closer to a street than the required front yard setback. The front yard setback in the LSR1 zone is 7.5 meters, and the proposed front yard setback is 3 meters, resulting in a difference of 4.5 meters. The proposed garage is about 57.67 square meters in size and will be located at the southeast corner of the lot. The garage will be used for the storage of vehicles and/or personal effects and fulfills a purpose that the existing sheds are unable to accommodate due to their limited size. These smaller accessory structures are also illustrated in beige on the site plan. On this slide, we have an example of how the garage may look located in the front yard. This photo was taken at the front of the property while standing in the middle of Flint Street. This illustration is intended to represent what someone might see as they travel down the road approaching the property. The location of the proposed garage is considered desirable as it responds to the siting challenges caused by the location of the existing sheds, mature trees, and the site's septic system. An existing drainage ditch and fence separate and buffer the proposed garage from the traveled portion of the road, providing both visual and physical separation from the road. The sides of the property are aligned with mature trees and vegetative buffers, which effectively screen the proposed garage from neighboring lots. The front yard setback encroachment is considered reasonable given the neighboring built form. For instance, the neighboring properties at both 30 Flint Street and 36 Flint Street are both have detached accessory structures that encroach into the front yard setback. Looking to the city's official plan, low-density residential uses along with accessory uses are permitted within the waterfront designation. Performance and siting criteria are implemented through the zoning bylaw. Looking to the zoning bylaw, the limited service residential exception 1 zone permits a vacation dwelling and accessory uses. As per section 3.6.2.3 of the bylaw, a lot with the limited service residential or limited service residential exception zone does not require frontage on an improved public street to permit development. The zoning bylaw defines an accessory use as a use subordinate and naturally, customarily, and normally incidental to and exclusively devoted to a main use of a land or a building and is located on the same lot. The lot's existing and proposed accessory structures will remain subordinate in both appearance and use, as the overall lot coverage for accessory structures will be about 4.29%, which falls well below the maximum permitted at 8%. A bylaw may impose a minimum front yard setback to ensure a cohesive built form and to ensure safe vehicle egress and ingress from the abutting road. The subject property's existing driveway is both long and wide and will assist with safe vehicle maneuverability to and from the site. The subject property is within an unevaluated wetland buffer. However, through circulation, Kawartha Region Conservation Authority has commented and said that the proposed development will not encroach on the wetland feature nor impact its function. Therefore, based on our review, there are no anticipated impacts on environmental features, neighboring properties, or the function of the private right-of-way. Comments were received from the supervisor of Part 8 sewage systems, indicating the placement of the garage will not encroach on the required clearance distances to the existing septic system. As such, the Building and Septic Division have confirmed that they have no issue with the endorsement of the proposal as it relates to the private on-site sewage disposal. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance, and staff respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified within the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Peck. Any questions of the planner? Ms. Richardson, go ahead.
Through you, is the applicant aware they will require a permit from Kawartha Conservation?
So the comments from Kawartha Conservation were circulated to the applicants. They should be aware of this.
And that doesn't need to be a condition in the recommendations?
No, that will be ensured through the building permit process.
Good question. Any further questions of the planner? All right, being none, Is the applicant online? Does the applicant wish to speak to the application? And your name, please?
Brenda Robinson.
Thank you.
And John Robinson.
All right, welcome to both of you. Go ahead.
We will definitely go through Kawartha Conservation as part of the permit process. And we just want to say thank you to Megan Peck for reviewing our application, and we appreciate the work that went into her report.
All right, thank you. Yes, our planners do an excellent job, and we always appreciate comments, supporting comments from the members of the public. So thank you for that. Anything further you wish to say?
No.
Are there any questions of the applicant? All right, thank you for that. Is there anyone online wishing to speak in support of this application? In support of this application? Anyone online wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Opposition to the application? Being none, committee. Ms. Richardson.
As written on the report.
Seconded by Councillor Yeo. Any further comments or questions with respect to the motion on the floor? All those in favor? And that carries. Your application is approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Are we able to excuse ourselves now?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Are we able to excuse ourselves from the meeting now?
Yes, you may.
Okay,
And-
thanks very much.
And thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, does that mean no, that doesn't mean we can all go, no, sorry. All right, moving right along. File number D20-2022-088. This is 86 Wembley Drive, Geographic Township of Somerville. Ms. Evans.
Thank you. Yes, the subject property, being 86 Wembley Drive, is zoned Limited Service Residential Zone under the Township of Somerville zoning bylaw 78-45 and is designated waterfront under the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan. The property is within a residential neighborhood located along the eastern shore of 4 Mile Lake. The subject property is irregular in shape, has frontage on the water, and is heavily vegetated. On the air photo here, there's a kind of a beige spot on the property where the dwelling is located. I'll highlight it with my laser on both sides here. So there and over here, if you're looking here. So that is where the dwelling is located, and as you can see, it is surrounded by water on 3 sides. Oh, it's mind of its own today. The purpose of this application is to facilitate the addition of a second story to the existing single detached dwelling. The bylaw requires a water setback of 15 meters. The existing setbacks are represented by the red lines on the sketch and are 5.21 meters from the southwest corner of the deck, 6.86 meters from the northwest corner of the deck, 10.06 meters from the northeast corner of the deck, and 10.11 meters from the southern corner of the dwelling. No further encroachment is proposed. Looking to some construction drawings. On the left, we have the east elevation of the proposed dwelling. Though the dwelling is set back quite a ways from the road, this perspective is from the road side of the property. The south elevation is on the right side of the slide, and you can see the sunroom and attached deck, which are existing. We have the floor plans here with the second floor addition on the left of the slide and the main floor on the right. On the left, we have the west elevation, again with the sunroom and attached deck. And on the right is a rendering of what the dwelling would look like. The photo on the left was taken with me standing as close to the water as I could and shows the dwelling, attached sunroom and deck. And the photo on the right shows the setback between the attached deck and the water. And when I took the Photo on the left, I was standing approximately here. The photo on the left shows the setback between the northeast corner of the deck and the water. And the photo on the right shows the setback between the south corner of the dwelling and the water. Over time, it can be expected that owners may endeavor to redevelop their property to achieve its highest and best use. The proposal is to add a second story to the existing dwelling in order to increase the amount of living space. The existing dwelling is 83.24 square meters, and the addition of the second story will increase the living space to 166.48 square meters. The dwelling predates the zoning bylaw and is located within the current water setback requirement. The existing reduced water setback will not be further increased, as no further encroachment is proposed. Looking to the official plan, low-density residential uses are permitted within the waterfront designation. The intent of the official plan is that development maintains a minimum setback of 15 meters from the shoreline in order to avoid natural hazards and provide environmental buffers. In this instance, the encroachment is existing, and the proposed second-story addition will not result in any further encroachment. As per policy 20.3.10, provisions such as building structure height limits are implemented to ensure buildings and structures do not exceed the height of the tree canopy or break the skyline horizon. The addition of the second story will not exceed the height of the tree canopy and does not exceed the maximum height permitted in the zoning bylaw. Additionally, the subject property and surrounding area are heavily vegetated, and the neighborhood is comprised of a mixture of 1- and 2-story dwellings. The proposed second story will not be out of character with the surrounding area. The subject property is also within the 4 Mile Lake specific lake policy area. Single detached dwellings and associated accessory structures and uses are permitted within this policy area. Looking to the zoning bylaw, the existing residential use is permitted in the LSR zone and complies with all applicable zone provisions with the exception of the minimum water setback. The intent of the minimum water setback is to provide sufficient space to establish vegetation and for the infiltration of stormwater runoff. In addition, the dwelling has been in this case, the dwelling has been established in its current location for some time, and therefore the existing shoreline conditions have also been established for some time and are not anticipated to change, as the existing encroachment will not increase. There are no anticipated impacts on environmental features, neighboring properties, or the function of the right-of-way. Comments were received from the supervisor of Part 8 sewage systems stating that in order to properly evaluate the proposal for the dwelling expansion, a sewage system review will need to be conducted. A complete review of the sewage system requirements for this proposal has been included as a condition of the variance. And just as a very recent update, the applicant contacted me this morning and said the intention is for the sewage system review forms to be completed at some point today, so they can be sent to the supervisor for review. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance, and staff respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified within the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions to the planner? All right, being none. Oh, am I looking at the applicant? Are you the applicant for this application, or the?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Ryan Hayter.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
I just thank you to everybody. Another perfectly done report, and seems like I get all the challenging projects lately.
Thank you. We appreciate those comments. Yes, our planners do excellent work. All right. Are there any questions of the applicant? Well, none. Then committee, I guess we're back to Councillor Yeo, as printed.
As printed?
Do I have a seconder? Mr. Erickson? All right. Any further comments or questions with respect to the motion on the floor? Being none, all those in favor? That carries. Your application is approved, sir.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
All right. Now dealing with file number D20-2022-089, and this is 26 Lawrence Street, Geographic Township of Emily. Ms. Peck,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
a nicely shared workload. Go ahead.
As mentioned, the application pertains to the property municipally addressed as 26 Lawrence Street South, located in the geographic township of Emily, hereinafter referred to as the subject property. The subject property is zoned rural residential type 3 under the Township of Emily zoning bylaw 1996-30 and is designated waterfront in the City of Kawartha Lake's official plan. The property is located along Lawrence Street South, a municipally improved and maintained street. The applicant is seeking relief from the required front yard setback to facilitate the construction of a detached garage. The subject property is within an established residential neighborhood located west of Frank Hill Road along the west shores of Lancaster Bay, found at the south end of Chemung Lake. The subject property currently contains a single detached dwelling and 2 small sheds at the property's rear that do not provide adequate outdoor storage space. The owner is currently storing equipment in a temporary tarp shed in the front yard, and a personal boat is being overwintered outside. The photo above is taken at the southeast corner of the property looking towards the dwelling. You can see the owner's boat covered in snow, and a row of mature trees provides visual buffering from the neighboring lot to the east. The location of the garage is illustrated by the beige box on the sketch above. The proposed garage will create much needed storage space and will allow for the owner to move some of the contents from the tarp shed indoors. The applicant is seeking relief from section 3.1.2.3 of the bylaw to permit a 2.3 meter encroachment into the required front yard setback. The RR3 zone requires a front yard setback of 7.5 meters and a setback of 4.3 meters is proposed. The proposed setback is enhanced by a 0.91 meter road verge that provides hydro infrastructure and is located between the front lot line and the traveled portion of Lawrence Street South. The width of this road verge was accidentally referred to as 8.5 meters on page 3 of the report, but this should read 0.91 meters. Including this road verge, the proposed garage will be located 5.18 meters from the traveled portion of Lawrence Street South. Moving to some site photos. The photos on the left and right illustrate what the garage might look like from the front of the property line, as well as from the front of the house looking towards the street. As you can see, the existing tarp shed will need to be removed to facilitate the proposal. Over time, it can be expected that owners may like to redevelop their property to achieve its highest and best use. The proposed garage is considered an improved storage space with greater visual appeal than the existing tarp shed. Its proposed location provides adequate separation distance from the house and ensures outdoor equipment can be moved from the front to the backyard. Additionally, its location on the east side of the lot also provides adequate separation from the property's existing septic system. The placement of the garage enhances on-site accessibility as it's located close to a building entry point and serves to maximize usability for people with reduced stamina. The front yard setback encroachment is considered reasonable given the neighborhood's existing built form. For instance, nearby and neighboring properties located at 30 Lawrence Street South and 28 Lawrence Street South both have detached garages that appear to encroach into the front yard setback. Looking to the official plan, low-density residential uses are permitted within the waterfront designation. Performance and siting criteria are implemented through the zoning bylaw. Looking to the zoning bylaw, the existing residential use is permitted in the RR3 zone and complies with all applicable zone provisions with the exception of the front yard setback. The purpose of the bylaw's front yard setback is to establish a consistent built form, ensuring adequate space for parked cars in the front yard and to provide safe egress and ingress to and from the property. A front yard setback of 4.3 meters allows enough room for the owner to park a compact car in front of the garage. Notwithstanding this, the property's existing driveway located west of the garage, you can see, I'll point to it here, provides ample space for outdoor vehicle parking, and removes the need to park in front of the garage altogether. The road verge adds additional room for vehicle movement and improved sightlines. There are no anticipated impacts on environmental features, neighboring properties, or the function of the municipal right-of-way. Comments were received from the supervisor of Part 8 sewage systems. A sewage system use permit has been issued for the property, and a site visit was conducted to review the location of the sewage system and the proposed accessory structure. Through field evaluation, the location of the accessory structure was coordinated and will provide the required clearance distances to the sewage system. Additionally, the accessory structure will not contain any components or fixtures that cause increased load in the total daily sewage flow, and as such, the Building and Septic Division have no issue with the endorsement of the minor variance as it relates to private on-site sewage disposal. Otonabee Region Conservation Authority was also circulated on the application, and no comments of concern were raised. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance, and staff respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified in the report. Thank you.
Thank you. And I say again, I think I can speak on behalf of the committee. Those simulations are very helpful, so thank you very much. All right, committee, any questions of the planner? Mr. Strangway, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Through you, Mr. Chairman. Megan, I noticed a comment or a phrase in here that I had not seen before, and I just can't find it. I just can't find it, but I think Megan will be able to. Something about reduced stamina.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, what I'm trying to say is that someone who might have a physical disability will benefit from having a garage closer to an entry point, or someone who might be fatigued would benefit from having a garage that is closer to an entry point of a building.
And that's what I was looking for. So there's an accessibility aspect to this, not with it. I don't want to go into great detail, but is this something new that you're looking at as far as accessibility, or does it just, I'm just wondering how all of a sudden it appears in this report.
Through you, Mr. Chair. No, this was just another justification that I felt, warranted the location of the shed in the front yard.
Okay, and there's no accessibility issues as far as the owners are concerned, I take it?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
We can never have too much information. Thank you. Anything further of the planner? All right, is the applicant online? Does the applicant wish to speak to the application? All right, it would appear not. Then, is there anyone online wishing to speak in support of the application? In support of the application? Anyone online wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Opposition to the application. Straightforward, and a lot of people building garages these days. Do I have a motion, committee?
As recommended by staff.
Any further comments or questions with respect to the motion on the floor? All those in favor? And that carries. All right, we're now dealing with file number D20-2022-090, and this is 6 Finch Street, Geographic Township of Fenland. Ms. Peck, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, hang on a minute. This is 2 in a row. That's hardly fair, is it? Go ahead, sorry.
As stated, the subject property is municipally addressed as 6 Finch Street and is located in the Geographic Township of Fenland. The subject property has split zoning, meaning that part of the property is zoned limited service residential and the other part of the property is zoned agricultural under the Township of Fenland zoning bylaw 12-95. The subject property has frontage along Lake Breeze Road, an improved and municipally maintained street, but a private right-of-way known as Finch Street also provides access to the property and bisects the property in the east-west direction. The agricultural zone is generally located to the north of Finch Street, and the LSR zone is generally located south of this right-of-way. I did include a map of the property circulated showing the split zoning. The property is designated waterfront under the City of Kawartha Lake's official plan. The purpose of the application is to facilitate the construction of a detached garage by seeking relief from the bylaw's maximum number of permitted accessory buildings and the permitted maximum lot coverage for all accessory buildings on the subject property. The subject property is located in an established neighborhood which contains rural and residential uses. The property is located along the west shore of Cameron Lake. The subject property has an established driveway off of Lake Breeze Road that meets Finch Street at a right angle. This driveway is illustrated by the dashed gray line in the image above, and the approximate location of the private road Finch Street is shown by the solid gray line. Picture number 1 was taken at the intersection of the driveway and the private road looking towards Lake Breeze Road. You can see in this picture that the site is heavily treed towards the road, and there is a moderate elevation change moving across the site from the road down towards the lake. For picture number 2, I'm still standing at that same intersection, but I've rotated 90 degrees to look towards the east lot line. In this picture, you can see the owner's existing private shed here, and just beyond that is where they're proposing to put their detached garage. The subject property has a number of detached accessory buildings and structures that provide different functions to enhance the property's residential use, which include a private cabin, a detached boathouse, a sea can storage container, 2 small sheds, and a tarp shed. A small firewood enclosure is also present on the property and illustrated on the site plan. However, it does not meet the definition of a structure under the zoning bylaw. The site currently has 6 accessory structures. However, the existing tarp shed will be removed to facilitate the proposal, and therefore, it is proposed to have 6 accessory structures remain on the site, inclusive of the proposed garage. This photo is taken standing on top of the detached boathouse, looking back towards the lot, towards Lake Breeze Road. You can see the dwelling here, as well as the existing accessory structures. As you can see, the accessory buildings are largely located towards the perimeter of the lot's cleared land, which provides more logical and cohesive building placement rather than a scattered appearance. The property's existing structures are limited in size and storage function. The 2 sheds are very small and only provide storage space for small garden tools or machinery such as a lawnmower. Furthermore, the existing dwelling does not contain an attached garage or weather covering for motor vehicles or boats. Well, it's a boathouse, I guess. The red arrow illustrates the approximate location of the detached garage. The illustration above demonstrates what the shed may look like as viewed from the north lot line looking southwest down Finch Street. The proposed garage will be located away from the private right-of-way, set back from the edge of the private cabin. The garage would be well screened by dense vegetation, making it screening its visibility from the east neighbors. And here we have some elevation drawings illustrating a two-car garage. Looking to the official plan, low-density residential uses are permitted within the waterfront designation. Performance and siting criteria are implemented through the zoning bylaw. The proposed garage is located in the agricultural zone. As per section 8.2.1.7 of the bylaw, since this portion of the lot of the agricultural zone is less than 1 hectare in size, the provisions of the rural residential type 1 zone apply. The rural residential type 1 zone permits residential uses and accessory uses such as a detached garage. The applicant is seeking relief from section 3.1.3.3 of the bylaw, which permits a maximum of 3 accessory buildings or structures in any class of residential zone. The non-complying property also already contains 6 accessory structures, demonstrating the lot's ability to absorb additional accessory structures with minimal impact due to the lot's larger size and mature vegetation. The bylaw limits the number of permitted accessory structures on a lot to enhance a cohesive built form, ensuring that the primary use is, ensuring priority of the primary use over subordinate ones. Given the spacing of the structures across the lot, located on either side of the private right-of-way, and generally located along the perimeter of the cleared area, the accessory structures are anticipated to remain subordinate in both appearance and use. The existing sea can container is nestled between some existing vegetation and the remaining accessory structures are small in scale, which improves the lot's cohesive appearance rather than scattered appearance. Additionally, the applicant is seeking relief from section 3.1.3.1 of the bylaw, which provides for a maximum accessory building coverage of 8% up to a maximum of 225 square meters. The proposed 6 accessory structures will occupy 233.5 square meters. However, this only accounts for 3.1% of the lot area, which is well below the suggested maximum of 8%. Apart from the provisions addressed above, the proposed garage complies with all applicable zone provisions, including the side yard setback. There are no anticipated impacts on environmental features, neighboring properties, or the function of the municipal or private right-of-way. Comments were received from the supervisor of Part 8 sewage systems stating that the sewage system permit has been issued and that a Class 4 septic system and leaching bed are installed adjacent to the existing dwelling. The existing system has adequate clearance distances greater than the minimum requirement, and the property can accommodate a replacement system if the current system fails. As such, the Building and Septic Division have no issue with the endorsement of the minor variance proposal as it relates to private on-site sewage disposal. Comments were also received by a member of the public named Kathy O'Regan. These comments were forwarded to the committee and touch on ecological functions of wetlands, water infiltration, and stormwater runoff. Ms. O'Regan also expressed concern over the location of the garage in respect to the property line and how water runoff could result in the overflow of streams or undermine soil stability and damage trees. In response to these comments and based on the property survey prepared by Bishop Geyer Surveying, Inc., the proposed garage is located 2.54 meters from the east property line. Furthermore, the subject property is not located within a provincially significant or unevaluated wetland or in an area of known natural hazard features. The application was circulated to Kawartha Conservation Authority, who has no concerns with the approval of the application with respect to natural hazard features such as flooding. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance, and staff respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified within the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Peck. Questions of the planner? Mrs. Richards.
For you, the 2 dwelling units are already there. Why do they have to go through this process? Why do they have to register as an ARU now? I would think that they would be grandfathered in.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to progress here, and this chart kind of outlines for you the provisions that they're seeking relief from. So in this case, the private cabin is already a permitted use. We're seeking relief for the number of accessory structures and the coverage of these accessory structures.
Ms. Richardson, follow up?
I'm just sorry for that confusion.
No, not a problem. Further questions to the planner? I guess I didn't hear all of Ms. Richardson's question, but I'm just curious. This is double the amount of accessory structures that the zoning bylaw permits. So I guess what I'm asking is this. Is there a limit? If I'm able to hide these accessory buildings on my lot, and even though I may be exceeding the square footage that's permitted, is there a maximum where we would say, no, that's it, no more?
I believe that each application would be reviewed in its own merits, depending on the site specifics, the vegetation, I think in this case, they limit the number of accessory buildings to ensure a cohesive built form, to prevent maybe, the appearance of lots of scattered small accessory buildings. In this case, the subject property is quite large, and on site they don't appear to be scattered in nature or blocking any views or being a nuisance to adjacent landowners.
I asked that because I used to live in the country, and folks have a tendency in those areas to not necessarily abide by the rules, and so you end up with some of the lots that are really unruly. So that's why I asked. I realize that we judge each one on its own merits, but yeah, thank you. All right, anything further to the planner? All right, is the applicant online? Does the applicant wish to speak to the application?
Hello,
And
John Dean.
your name, sir?
Take a moment. John Dean.
Go ahead, sir.
With respect to the extra building, it was actually in order for me to facilitate putting the extra things around my property inside. I'm not really keen on keeping things outside my buildings because I do find them unsightly as well.
All right, thank you. Anything further you wish to add?
Not at this time.
Are there any questions of the applicant? All right, sir, thank you for your time.
No, not.
I'm sorry? No, all right. Anyone online wishing to speak in support of this application? In support of this application. Anyone online wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Opposition to the application. Being none, committee, where are we? Mr. Strangway.
As recommended by staff.
And seconded by Councillor Yeo. Any further comments or questions with respect to the motion on the floor? All those in favor? That carries. Your application is approved, sir.
Thanks so much to the planning department and everyone involved. Thank you.
Very good. All right, moving right along. And we are. File number D20-2022-091, and this is 244 Lake Dalrymple Road, Geographic Township of Carden. Ms. Evans, my old stomping ground.
Thank you. Yes, the subject property, being 244 Lake Dalrymple Road, is zoned Rural Residential Type 2 zone under the Township of Carden zoning bylaw 79-2 and is designated waterfront under the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan. The subject property is located in an established neighborhood which contains residential, commercial, and community facility uses. It is located on the east side of Lake Dalrymple, separated from the water by the road. The adjacent uses to the north and south are residential, and the use to the east is the Carden Recreation Center and the Little Blue Alver Trail. The property contains 2 single detached dwellings, a detached garage, and 2 sheds. The purpose of this application is to facilitate the registration of an existing second dwelling as an additional residential unit, or ARU, which is identified with the blue box on the sketch. Relief is needed from the required minimum lot area for ARUs on properties with private services. The minimum lot area is 4,000 square meters, and this property is 2,755.3 square meters. As 2 dwellings currently exist on the property, the smaller of the 2 will be registered as an ARU. The photo on the left is the property taken from the road, showing the larger of the 2 existing dwellings, which would be the primary dwelling. The photo on the right shows the second single detached dwelling that is to be registered as an ARU. And to give some context as to the spatial separation between the 2, when I took the photo on the right of the proposed ARU, I had my back almost touching the back wall of the primary dwelling on the property. The photo on the left was taken from beside the proposed ARU, looking north at the neighboring property. And the photo on the right was taken from beside the ARU, looking south. at the neighboring property, showing that thick vegetative buffer there. It also shows the depth of the yard that extends between the proposed ARU and the rear lot line. There are currently 2 dwellings on this property, and the registration of one as an ARU will bring it into conformity with the zoning bylaw while providing a potential new housing option. Looking to the official plan, low-density residential uses are permitted within the waterfront designation. In 2020, the official plan was amended to address the requirements of the Planning Act, conform with provincial policies, and establish new land use policies for additional residential units. An ARU is permitted as of right in addition to the primary residential unit in single detached, semi-detached, or townhouse dwellings, as well as in accessory buildings or structures on lots associated with these dwelling types, provided they are in accordance with the official plan policy and the applicable zoning bylaw provisions. Under the zoning bylaw, ARUs are permitted in all zones that permit single detached, semi-detached, or townhouse dwelling units, subject to the provisions of the zoning bylaw. A single detached dwelling is a permitted use within the rural residential type 2 zone. Apart from the minimum lot size for properties on private services, the property and proposal comply with the ARU provisions of the zoning bylaw as well as the provisions of the RR2 zone. The minimum lot size of 4,000 square meters required for an ARU on properties with private services identifies a lot size where the ability to support an ARU on private services is likely. Lots that are under the minimum lot size require a review to determine whether the lot can support the required servicing for an ARU. The Building and Septic Division has confirmed that the proposed sewage system will be able to service both dwellings. The second dwelling that is to be registered as an ARU is already existing. It's not visible from the road and is set back from the other dwelling on the property, as well as the dwellings on neighboring properties. There are no anticipated impacts on environmental features, neighboring properties, or the function of the right-of-way. Comments were received from the supervisor of Part 8 sewage system stating that an application for a sewage system permit has been submitted to install a replacement system to service both dwellings on the property. The sewage system can be accommodated to service the dwellings within the property boundaries in accordance with the current Ontario Building Code standards. And as such, the Building and Septic Division has confirmed they have no issue with the endorsement of the minor variance as it relates to private on-site sewage disposal. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance, and staff respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified within the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Questions of the planner? Mr. Strang?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Ms. Evans. I think most of the ARU applications we've seen in the past are for new builds. And yet I notice we have a situation here where it's a long time existing. I'm just wondering, what is I'm trying to get my head around, what is the reason that they're now applying for an ARU at this point?
Through the chair, yes, the registration of that second dwelling as an ARU is a requirement for the issuance of a building permit. So the applicant did submit a permit to construct a new garage. The garage is in compliance with the zoning bylaw. It doesn't require a variance. And he is also proposing to replace the existing septic system on the property. So through this process, the Building and Septic Division noticed that there is a second dwelling on the property that contained living space and was connected to its own septic system. So in order for that building permit and the septic system replacement permit to move forward, the non-compliance of that second single detached dwelling had to be addressed, and the applicant opted to address that non-compliance through the registration of the dwelling as an ARU.
I hear you. I'm going to have to take some time to think about this. It appears that to solve one problem, the applicant is going through an ARU, and I'm wondering whether this is actually for additional living or just to make it work. I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Any further questions of the planner?
Yeah, and through you, Mr. Chair, to follow up on that, so I'm guessing where's the panic? These two buildings were built in 1924 and 1954, if I remember correctly when I read the file. So would they not be factors as grandfathered in, so to say? And so what's the panic and the requirement to get the ARU?
Through the chair, if the applicant wanted to prove that these two or the first and then the second single detached dwelling were legal non-conforming, that would be a process that would be accomplished through divisional court. So instead of going that route, it was determined that it would be registered as an ARU, knowing that a variance would be required to accomplish that. And they did have the option to do either one, and this was the route that was selected.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, I'm shaking my head too. Anything further from committee? All right. Is the applicant online? Does the applicant wish to speak to the application?
Yes, Eric Kraber.
All right, sir, go ahead.
So, yeah, the questions that are being asked are like leading to what the approach being chosen is being chosen for. That to get anything further done, the status of the two dwellings on the property had to be clarified, and that's why this approach is being taken. Other than that, the report, as it's being stated by the planning department, that I have nothing to add or amend to that.
Well, in other words, if you wanted the garage, you had to do something with the second building, and you decided that the route to take was the ARU. I think the planners indicated you had an option of how you could handle it, and you decided that let's make it an ARU and it solves my problem.
Yeah, exactly. That one approach is like doing legal findings of facts and digging into like deeply into policy and so on. But the other approach is to take the truth on the ground, like the facts on the ground, that they're two inhabitable dwellings, and just get their status clarified using the modern framework that is in place to do that.
All right. Any further questions of the, Mr. Erickson, go ahead.
Through the chair to the planner, why not a site-specific zoning bylaw?
Sevens?
Through the chair, a site-specific rezoning would have been a more involved process than doing the minor variance. It's a more involved application process, would have likely taken longer, higher fees. So the registration of the ARU accomplished through the minor variance would be kind of the lesser of the two Planning Act applications.
Follow up, Mr. Erickson? I guess my question is, had we not been in the, and these are excellent questions, had we not been in a situation now whereby we're striving to get more housing, would this have applied? Were we not in the situation where these ARUs are, I don't know, maybe that's an unfair question, but Ms. Berry, maybe I can you on that. Where would we be if, in fact, the ARU situation didn't exist and we weren't striving, and I'm certainly not debating we need more housing, but where would we be prior to if this sort of situation occurred? Would we have pushed for the rezoning?
Sure, thanks for the question. If the application, in the opinion of staff and the planner reviewing the file, was not able to achieve compliance with the 4 tests, then our recommendation would be either continue to pursue the variance with a recommendation for denial and kind of roll the dice, or here's why a zoning bylaw amendment, site-specific, is more appropriate. different scale of evaluation, different tests to meet, another way to say that, and then that option would have been provided as well. In this case, as we saw described in the report, in the opinion of our staff, it did meet the 4 tests and was eligible to proceed under the variance.
All right, thank you. I do appreciate. Anything further from committee?
Just a comment. I believe there are probably many, many properties with 2 residents on. Are we going to see many more of these now?
It's becoming an issue, there's no question about that. Although perhaps I should say it's becoming a non-issue, it would appear. That's maybe a better way to put it. Anyway, nothing further of the applicant? All right. Anyone online wishing to speak in support of this application? In support of this application? Anyone online wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Opposition to this application? Being none, committee. Councillor Yeo.
As printed.
Do I have a seconder? Mr. Erickson. Any further comments or questions with respect to the motion on the floor? Those in favor? All right, the motion carries. Your application is approved, sir.
Thank you very much, department.
Thank you for taking the time. All right, we're now moving to file number D20-2022-093, and this is 6 Prince Street East, Geographic Village of Bobcaygeon. Now it's fair, Ms. Evans has got a back-to-back. Go ahead.
That's right, exactly. Yes, the subject property being 6 Prince Street East is zoned Central Commercial or C1 zone under the Village of Bobcaygeon zoning bylaw 16-78 and is designated urban settlement area under the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan and urban under the Victoria County official plan. The subject property is a corner lot located at the intersection of Prince Street East and Main Street. The surrounding uses are both residential and commercial, and the property currently contains a detached garage, which is to be removed. The proposal is for the construction of a new mixed-use building, which will contain 3 residential units, each with their own garage, and 1 commercial unit. The commercial unit is intended for a boutique retail outlet. The required parking spaces for the 3 residential units can be accommodated on the property. The purpose of the minor variance is to facilitate a proposed parking reduction for the commercial unit. On the sketch, on the slide here, I've marked the proposed commercial parking spaces with red dots and the proposed residential parking spaces with green dots. Section 3.13A of the bylaw requires 1 parking space per business plus 1 per 30 square meters of floor area. Based on the proposed floor area of the commercial unit being 80.7 square meters, 4 parking spaces would be required. The proposed number of parking spaces is 2. The photo on the left was taken at the southwestern corner of the intersection of Main Street and Prince Street West. So this is the intersection where Prince Street East becomes Prince Street West, with Main Street being here, and Prince Street East being here, and the subject property being at the corner here. The photo on the right is a closer up image of the subject property taken from the southeast corner of the intersection. The photo on the left was taken looking down Main Street with the available parking. You can see a car in the distance here. And the photo on the right was taken looking up Main Street with the available parking on the side. And you can see a car just there. And for context as to when the photos were taken, it was December 21st, and it was right around lunchtime, 12:30. I've included some air photos here from our mapping showing just a more comprehensive view, including some of the on-site parking that is available in the area. The area is a mixture of residential and commercial uses, and some of the commercial uses along this section of Main Street have their own parking areas on site, reducing potential competition for shared on-street parking. The proposed mixed-use building will contribute to the residential housing stock while also providing a location for future business. Within downtown areas, on-site parking is generally not anticipated to be in abundance. However, some of the commercial uses along this section of Main Street do have their own parking areas, again reducing potential competition for the shared on-street parking. Looking to the official plan, as the urban settlement area designation in the city's 2012 official plan is under appeal, the urban designation of the Victoria County official plan, or VCOP, applies. Within the urban designation, the permitted uses are residential, recreational, institutional, industrial, cultural, and commercial. A broad range of residential uses are permitted, with lower density uses being predominant, which include single detached dwellings, semi-detached dwellings, duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes. The subject property is located in the area identified by the VCOP as the central business core area of the village of Bobcaygeon, and this area is comprised of a compact land use pattern that mostly serves pedestrian traffic, and a mix of uses are permitted. The C1 zone permits a variety of commercial uses, including retail stores, as well as dwelling units. The proposal does not contradict the C1 zone permitted uses or provisions. The proposal to reduce the number of required commercial parking spaces by 2 spaces and fulfill any additional commercial parking needs using the available street parking is not likely to have a negative impact on any of the surrounding land uses or the function of the area, as the area is already designed to accommodate a mixture of on-street and off-street parking. There are no anticipated impacts on environmental features, neighboring properties, or the function of the right-of-way. Several comments were received from members of the public, which have been forwarded to the committee. A request for more information and a copy of the sketch was received from Stacy Blakeney, and a description of the proposal, as well as the copy of the sketch, were provided on January 18th. On January 26th, further comments were received from Stacy Blakeney, with concerns regarding limited parking being available in the area, the size of the accessible parking space and adjacent aisle, and that 3 companies worked on the survey and the boundaries of the survey are incorrect. On January 24th, comments were received from Ed and Karen Dudman expressing concerns regarding the variance, including the narrowness of Prince Street East and its ability to provide on-street parking, overnight parking not being permitted in the winter, and concerns about where the residential tenants of the proposed building would park during that time. That other businesses do provide their own parking, and that the lot being too small to support the proposed building. Additionally, the comments stated that each residential tenant should have their own parking space on the property, and that the commercial unit should have at least 2 parking spaces on the property. On January 25th, comments were received from Susan De Silva expressing concerns regarding the variance, including a lack of parking being available on Main Street, and this resulting in individuals having to park further from their destination and walk, as well as a lack of parking on Prince Street East, which is the address of the subject property. On January 25th, comments were received from Amanda Christina expressing concerns regarding the variance, including that this location is not ideal for a mixed-use building, that the lot and area cannot accommodate the proposed building, and that there are already apartments across the road, limited on-street parking being available, and customers having to park on the street. On January 26th, comments were received from Brandy Keeler, resident of 51 Main Street, expressing concerns regarding the variance, including having experienced difficulty with individuals parking in their designated parking space and individuals parking incorrectly, resulting in their parking space being blocked in. Vehicles with trailers in the summer blocking parking spaces, and there being limited on-street parking. On January 26th, comments were received from Kyle Boland, resident of the property abutting the subject property, 111 Main Street, expressing concern regarding the variance, including concerns regarding the limited on-street parking being available, and concern that customers of the proposed commercial unit would park in their driveway. On January 26th, comments were received from Beth Gilroy, resident of Queen Street, in support of the proposal, stating that the creation of more residential housing should be prioritized over the creation of more parking spaces, that day visitors to the commercial unit can park along Main Street, and that Bob Keegan needs more residential housing. To provide a response to the comments received, I can say that street parking is available along the west side of Main Street, and that there are lines painted to show individual parking spaces. While the property is addressed as Prince Street East, the commercial unit will actually front on Main Street. The Bob Keegan zoning bylaw does not contain size or aisle requirements for accessible parking spaces. The city's site plan guideline does provide guidance on this minimum size, and applicants are encouraged to follow this guideline, and this level of detail would be brought through and examined through the site plan process. Main Street from Bolton Street to the northern boundary of Bob Keegan is almost 2,000 meters long and crosses through areas with differing land uses and densities. For example, the southern portion of Main Street, closer to Bolton Street, has uses such as Bigley's, restaurants, cafes that might demand more on-street parking, especially at peak times of the day, for example, meal times. The portion of Main Street that is closer to the subject property has uses such as a denture clinic, a motel, a fireplace store, an auto parts store, and some of these uses do have their own on-site parking, again reducing potential competition for parking spaces along this section of Main Street. While other sections of Main Street contain denser commercial uses, which may result in a higher demand for on-street parking, the section of Main Street in closer proximity to the subject property doesn't contain that same density of commercial uses, as there are also residential uses scattered in this area. Tenants of the residential units will not need to park on the street overnight, as each residential unit will have 2 parking spaces accommodated on the property for a total of 6 residential parking spaces. The commercial unit will have 2 parking spaces accommodated on the property, and the applicant proposes the available street parking that is shared between businesses in the area could accommodate the additional 2 parking spaces. The zoning bylaw provides on-site parking requirements for a variety of uses, including commercial. As the proposal is for the reduction to those parking requirements, the review of the appropriateness of the parking reduction through the minor variance process is required. Regarding concerns about the boundaries shown on the sketch is provided on a legal survey that was completed by JBF surveyors, and a copy of the survey has been printed out and distributed to committee members without the sketch on it, just for your reference. Regarding comments about the size of the proposed building, the ability of the lot to accommodate the proposed building, the proposal complies with all provisions of the C1 zone, including the setbacks, maximum lot coverage, and maximum height, and the proposed mixed-use building is a permitted use. The only relief required is for the reduction in parking. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance, and staff respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified within the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of the planner? Mr. Erickson, go ahead.
I have a few questions. Through the chair to the planner, are there elevation drawings with this application?
Through the chair, elevation drawings were not provided as part of the minor variance application. There were elevations as part of a first round of site plan submission, but the applicant has confirmed that those will be subject to change, so they're not up to date with what they are currently proposing. So we do not have up-to-date elevations as to what this proposal will look like.
So you don't know for sure that any unit for that matter, but especially the commercial unit, is actually accessible to somebody with a handicap.
One of the parking spots proposed is an accessible parking space. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but there is an accessible parking space available.
Actually, is the commercial unit accessible to everybody? That's basically my question. Is it accessible, or is there a grade separation where somebody arriving at the site who is handicapped parks in the space, goes to the door of the commercial unit and cannot get in because it's not accessible to them?
Dealing with parking spaces, that's what the variance is all about, but go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair. The zoning bylaw does not contain provisions for accessible entrances, but this is a very important consideration at the site plan stage.
My only other question is probably irrelevant at this time. I don't see a sidewalk along the Prince Street frontage. Is there a sidewalk in front of all that development?
Not that I'm aware of, but let's back up to some photos here. Yeah, based on our site visit, there are no sidewalks on Prince Street East.
And there isn't one to be installed. So isn't that a hazard for pedestrians trying to get to the unit?
Again, Mr. Erickson, we're dealing with parking spaces. I'm not so sure that's relevant to the cause here. Do you wish to respond to that, Ms. Evans?
It wouldn't be the applicant, sorry, through the chair. It wouldn't be the applicant who would be installing the sidewalks. That would be a public works matter, so we would have to speak with them about that.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you. Okay. Anything further of, yes, Ms.
Through you, with respect to the shared commercial and residential parking lot, will there be some kind of a barrier or whatever so that the commercial visitors aren't entering onto the residential parking space?
Through the chair, I believe that is another detail that would be examined at the site plan stage, but perhaps the applicant could shed some more light on what that would look like on the ground.
So hold that thought if you would, and we'll. Anything further of the planner? All right. Is the applicant online? Does the applicant wish to speak to the application? And again, your name, sir, if you would.
My name is Tom DeBoer with TD Consulting.
All right, go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much, Catherine, for a beautiful presentation and a lot of detail. There are a couple of questions that did come up subsequent to that, and I believe I have most of the answers to them. The elevation drawings, first and foremost, have been adopted for our first round of site plan. There was some minor changes that needed to be made, and at my request, we omitted them from this application, only because that wasn't what we were speaking of. It was more the parking reduction more than anything else. The elevation drawings are very clear. We have one commercial unit on the corner of Main and Prince, primarily facing onto Main Street. Main Street, from my understanding and the recent site visits that I've conducted, actually has on-street parking on both sides. The municipality did some widening not long ago, maybe a few years ago, and curbs with lay-bys, which provides unobstructed two-side parking. The accessibility requirement associated with the parking space has been provided in compliance with the Accessibility Act, current to date. So that provides the typical parking space plus the aisle width to promote the egress of any individuals that need that space. As it relates to a sidewalk on Prince Street. Prince Street on the north side, which this property is subject to, has a very large hydro corridor, which is above grade due to the rock presence in Bobcaygeon. And it was actually just reinstated, especially to the east side of our property. There's actually a large pole with significant infrastructure, which would prohibit myself or anybody for that matter, municipality included, to place a sidewalk within the municipal boulevard. So if there was going to be a sidewalk, the most appropriate place, which typically sidewalks on a narrow road, would be on the south side anyways. At this point, there is no sidewalk proposed. The egress for the residential units obviously is from their driveways. One parking spot on the driveway outside, one parking spot in their garage, and everybody's taken care of. And again, just to echo what Catherine had mentioned, the minor variance that we're asking for is simply to facilitate the parking requirement for 2 commercial spaces, not the residential spaces. So these would only be required during business hours. So it's not overnight parking that we're concerned about. And it's just the matter of going forward, the boutique may have maybe 1 or 2 visitors in an hour span, in which case could easily be accommodated on on-street parking. So if there's any other questions, hopefully I've answered everybody's concerns.
Ms. Richardson, go ahead.
Through you, you didn't address the question about is there anything to differentiate between the commercial and the residential parking lot?
So the only parking spot that would be compromised is the one sort of in the center of the plan, which shares a parking location. So I guess that would be the one on the left-hand side beside the 2 green dots. We would simply, if there became a problem or if through site plan was determined required, that we could definitely denote either with signage or pavement markings that it's a commercial space versus a residential space.
Follow up?
No, we just don't know people. And they don't obey signs or anything else, so.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, and just a comment. Given Bobcaygeon and the history of parking problems, I'd just like to commend whoever did this on the job they did, and we're only looking at not even fully 2 parking spaces, really, a parking space and a half, but I think this is a wonderful use of space and plan. Thank you.
All right. Mr. DeBoer, did you wish to add anything further?
No, and again, in light of our what I'm going to say a provincial problem, I think one of the individuals that provided a comment on the application where they said it's better to sacrifice 2 parking spaces versus a residential unit. I think they're very correct in saying so. We're not compromising the residential use versus the availability for additional rental accommodations. And just so everybody is aware that these are not going to be sold by any means, they will be rental accommodations, which is something desperately needed in our community throughout, especially in the downtown core where all businesses are accessible on pedestrian access. So if there's any other things, I'd be more than happy to address them.
All right, and thank you for that. Anything further of the deputy? All right, thank you for your time, sir. Is there anyone online wishing to speak in support of this application? In support of this application? Anyone online wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Opposition to this application? Being none? Councillor Yeo, can I go to you then for a motion?
As printed.
All right, do I have a seconder? Mr. Erickson. Any further comments or questions with respect to the motion on the floor? All in favor? And that carries. The application is approved, Mr. DeBoer.
Thank you very much, everybody.
All right. We're now dealing with file number D20-2022-094, and this is 21721 Brunnen Avenue, Geographic Township of Mariposa. Ms. Peck, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The subject property being 21721 Brunon Avenue is zoned rural residential type 3 under the Mariposa Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 94-07. The subject property is designated waterfront and environmental protection with significantly provincial wetland overlay on the City of Kawartha Lake's official plan. The purpose of the application is to facilitate the construction of a covered front porch addition to the existing non-complying single detached dwelling by seeking relief from the required front yard setback. The subject property is a residential waterfront lot located on the south side of the Layton River. The Layton River is located west of Lake Scugog, southwest of Seagrave. The property fronts on a Brunon Avenue, a low-traffic local road that terminates in a cul-de-sac. The interplay between the cul-de-sac and the subject property can be seen in Figure 1. This photo was taken from the property's driveway looking west and illustrates the physical separation between the adjacent lots afforded by the configuration of the cul-de-sac. The properties located on the east side of Brunon Avenue are located within the City of Kawartha Lakes, whereas the properties on the west side of Brunon Avenue are located in the township of Scugog. The subject property experiences a substantial grade change beginning at the dwelling's rear wall, sloping towards the lake. This topological constraint limits the extent and feasibility of constructing additional outdoor amenity space at the dwelling's rear. This grade change is illustrated in Figure 2. It can be expected that over time, owners may want to improve their property, resulting in its highest and best use. The owners wish to enlarge their outdoor living space through an addition of a covered front porch. The covered porch will serve as a transition area, protecting the home's front entryway from inclement weather. The existing house has an existing non-compliant front yard setback of 7.06 meters, and the dwelling's construction predates the Mariposa's first comprehensive zoning bylaw. Looking to some construction drawings, you can see the porch's west elevation is shown on the left side, and the south elevation on the right here. The elevation on the right represents the view of the house from the street. The image above demonstrates the proposed elevations overlaid on the existing house to get a better sense of what the addition may look like on site. The introduction of a covered front porch acts to reduce the massing of the dwelling's two-story front wall and will add visual breaks in the facade to create visual interest. The existing house is situated on an angle, and so in other words, it's not oriented parallel to the front lot line. It is anticipated that this angled siting would reduce the appearance of the encroachment. Furthermore, the proposed building addition will better align with the dwelling's front main wall of the neighboring property located at 21711 Brunon Avenue, creating a more consistent established building line. I'll just go back here so you can see the angled siting of that covered porch and dwelling. Looking to the official plan, the subject property is designated waterfront and environmental protection with provincially significant wetlands under the City of Kawartha Lake's official plan. The environmental protection designation and provincially significant wetlands are located towards the property's rear, adjacent to the water's edge. The proposed addition is located in the front yard, and it is proposed within the waterfront designation, which permits residential uses, including a single detached dwelling. Performance and siting criteria are implemented through the zoning bylaw. With respect to zoning, Section 14.2.1.3a of the Mariposa zoning bylaw requires a front yard setback of 7.5 meters. The applicant is proposing a reduced front yard setback of 4.22 meters from the covered deck, 4.56 meters from the north steps, and 4.77 meters from the west steps. And those measurements are highlighted in yellow in the image above. One of the purposes of the front yard setback is to provide sufficient spatial separation in order to mitigate land use conflicts between the subject property and the road, as well as between neighboring lots. Brunon Avenue receives low-intensity local traffic, and the abutting cul-de-sac provides spatial separation in the lot fabric between the subject property and the north abutting neighbor at 21741 Brunon Avenue. The residential lots across the street, those located in the township of Scugog, are larger lots, and they are heavily treed near the road. The dwellings on these lots are also set back substantially from the front lot line, providing a visual buffer between the proposed addition and the nearby lots. The photo above shows the properties across the street that are very densely treed and well visually screened. As per the comments received by Kawartha Region Conservation Authority, the subject property is partially located within the Wellhead Protection Area D for the Kings Bay Municipal Drinking Water System. Therefore, a Section 59 notice from Kawartha Region's risk management official is required prior to the approval of any Planning Act application. This requirement is reflected in condition number 2 of this report. The proposed development is located within the buffer of a provincially significant wetland. However, through circulation, Kawartha Conservation determined that the development does not encroach on the wetland feature and should not impact its function. Therefore, there are no anticipated impacts on environmental features, neighboring properties, or the function of the municipal right-of-way. Comments were received from the supervisor of Part 8 sewage systems. An existing sewage system use permit or installation report was not located, and the site plan did not indicate the location of the private on-site sewage system. To determine compliance of the proposed addition with respect to the required clearance distances for the sewage system, a site visit is required or further information is required by the applicant for review. This requirement is captured by condition 3 within the report. Kawartha Conservation was also circulated on the application and had no concern with the approval of the minor variance application as it relates to natural hazards or heritage features. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance, and staff respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified within the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Peck. Questions of the planner? All right, being none, is the applicant online? Does the applicant wish to speak to the application? And your name, sir? Ma'am, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, that's okay. It's the haircut. It's right. Just to say thank you so much to Ms. Peck and everyone's due diligence. What an interesting experience this has been. Thank you so much for all your hard work.
And thank you very much for those comments. We do appreciate it. Every time we receive accolades with respect to the planning staff, they do an excellent job. Did you wish to say anything further, ma'am?
Oh, no, I think an excellent job has been done by Ms. Peck.
Questions of the applicant? All right, being none. Is there anyone online wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Opposition to the application? Being none, committee. Mr. Strangway.
As recommended by staff.
All right, do I have a seconder? Ms. Richardson? Are there any comments or questions with respect to the motion on the floor? All those in favor? And ma'am, your application is approved.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to have to be more careful. All right, moving along, we're dealing with file number D20-2022-095, and this is 198 Moorings Drive, Geographic Township of Somerville. Ms. Evans.
Thank you. Yes, the subject property, being 198 Moorings Drive, is zoned limited service residential floodplain under the Township of Somerville zoning bylaw 78-45, and is a designated environmental protection under the City of Kawartha Lake's official plan. The subject property is within a residential neighborhood located along the eastern shore of the Burnt River. The property has frontage on the water and currently contains a garage, shed, and foundation. The dwelling which previously existed on the property was destroyed by a fire in February of 2022. According to Municipal Property Assessment Corporation, or MPAC, the dwelling that previously existed was constructed in 1982. Just a note on our air photos here. The location on the mapping is correct, but the air photo is not properly aligned with the boundaries. So the previously existing dwelling is actually in the photo just to the south of what is highlighted in blue. The purpose of the application is to facilitate the construction of a new, larger dwelling to replace the dwelling that was destroyed by fire. The new dwelling is to be constructed on the same foundation and footprint as the previous dwelling, but the new dwelling will be larger as more living space will be added to the second floor than what previously existed. Section 5.2F of the bylaw requires a water setback of 15 meters. The proposed setback is 14.7 meters. The 14.7 meter setback is identified by the red line on the sketch. The reduced setback will increase no further than what previously existed. And just for some context on using the existing foundation and why the new dwelling was not proposed in a location in compliance with the water setback, a structural engineering assessment was completed after the fire, and that assessment determined that the foundation sustained only minor damage, requiring localized repairs. And as only minor repairs were required, the homeowner insurance policies cover the lesser of the cost to repair or replace damages. The insurance provider would not pay for the replacement of the foundation, and therefore the existing foundation, which is within the current water setback, is to be used for the new dwelling. Looking to some construction drawings, on the top of the slide we have the west elevation of the proposed dwelling, and this would be the perspective from the water side of the property. On the bottom of the slide is the east elevation, and this would be what the dwelling would look like from the road side of the property. This slide has the elevations looking at the proposed dwelling from both sides. The elevation on the top is the south elevation, and the elevation on the bottom is the north elevation. And this drawing just gives kind of a semi-bird's eye view of what the proposed dwelling is to look like. The photo on the left is of the property taken from the road, and it shows the garage, which remained after the fire, as well as the existing foundation that can be seen just beyond the construction fence there. The photo on the right was taken from close to the water, with the garage being covered by that blue tarp, and you can again see the existing foundation. This photo illustrates the setback from the water to the foundation. So you can see just the edge of the foundation here and the water's edge here. Again, edge of the foundation to the water. The proposal is to reconstruct a new dwelling on the same footprint as the previous dwelling. The dwelling will be enlarged through the addition of 23.23 square meters of living space to the second story. The existing garage will be attached to the new dwelling, as well as that covered deck. The existing foundation upon which the new dwelling will be constructed is within the current water setback requirement, and the existing reduced water setback will not be further increased as no further encroachment is proposed. The property is designated environmental protection under the City of Kawartha Lake's official plan. As per section 34.1 of the official plan, nothing in the plan applies to prevent the reconstruction of any building or structure that lawfully existed on the date of the official plan was adopted that is damaged or destroyed by causes beyond the owner's control, provided the ground floor area of the reconstructed building is within the outside limits of the building that existed on the date the plan was adopted. So the ground floor area of the new dwelling will be the same as the previously existing dwelling, and again, performance and siting criteria is implemented through the zoning bylaw. Looking to the zoning bylaw, the previously existing residential use is permitted in the limited service residential floodplain zone and complies with all applicable zone provisions, with the exception of the minimum water setback. The zoning bylaw states that nothing in the bylaw shall prevent the rebuilding or repair of any building or structure that is damaged or destroyed by causes beyond the control of the owner, provided the dimensions of the original building are not increased, the use of the building is not altered, and the rebuilding or repair is conducted within 2 years. This provision is interpreted to include all dimensions, both vertical and horizontal. As the proposal is for a larger second story than what previously existed, a variance is required as the dimensions are proposed to increase. The intent of the minimum water setback is to provide sufficient space to establish vegetation and to provide sufficient space for the infiltration of stormwater runoff. In this case, the dwelling that was destroyed had been established in its location for a considerable period of time, and as the new dwelling is proposed to be constructed on the same footprint, the existing encroachment will not increase. Therefore, existing shoreline conditions are not anticipated to change. The property is subject to the floodplain provisions of the zoning bylaw. As a requirement of the issuing of a building permit, the applicant will be required to provide a lot grading and drainage plan at the building permit stage, showing the applicable spot elevation as provided by the zoning bylaw. It will need to be demonstrated that the openings of the building are at or above the estimated level of flooding identified in the zoning bylaw, and this requirement is reflected as a condition of the variance. There are no anticipated impacts on environmental features, neighboring properties, or the function of the right-of-way. Comments were received from the supervisor of Part 8 sewage system stating that a full evaluation of the septic system needs to be conducted through the Building and Septic Division, and this requirement is reflected as a condition of the variance. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a variance, and staff respectfully recommends approval of the application, subject to the conditions identified within the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Questions of the planner? Being none. Is the applicant online? Does the applicant wish to speak to the application? I guess not.
Yeah, I'm here.
And your name, sir?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
My name is Tom Maloney. Oh, wonderful. Yeah, I am the applicant and the owner of that property. My family had owned it, or my parents had owned it since '98. We had a tragic fire last year, and we just want to improve the footprint by moving up a little bit. So that's it.
All right, thank you for that, sir.
Okay.
Are there any questions?
And I would thank you to Catherine as well for all her work.
Thank you for that. We do appreciate that. Any comments of the applicant from committee? Is there anyone online wishing to speak in support of this application? In support of this application? Anyone online wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Opposition to the application? Being none, committee. Where are we? Ms. Richardson?
As recommended by staff.
Any further comments or questions on the motion on the floor? All those in favor? Your application is approved, sir.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Well, last but not least, file number D20-2022-096, and this is 149 Kennedon Road, Geographic Township of Emily. Ms. Peck, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The subject property, being 149 Kennedon Drive, is zoned rural residential type 3 under the Township of Emily zoning bylaw 1996-30 and designated waterfront under the City of Kawartha Lake's official plan. The applicant is seeking relief from the required minimum lot frontage to facilitate the approval of 2 provisional consents. The subject property is located along the southeast shore of Pigeon Lake, near the opening of the Pigeon River. This minor variance application is a companion file to support 2 consent application, file numbers D03-2022-014 and D03-2022-015. On November 4th, 2022, the Director of Development Services, as directed by Council, granted provisional consent for these files to facilitate 2 lot line adjustments. These consents look to sever 0.196 hectares from Kennedon from 149 Kennedy Drive to be conveyed to 137 Kennedy Drive. Additionally, 0.049 hectares will be severed and conveyed to 145 Kennedy Drive, and the resulting retained lands, shown in green on the survey above, will be 0.31 hectares in size and will have a remaining lot frontage of 23.38 meters. Under the rural residential type 3 zone, a lot frontage of 24.38 meters is considered undersized. Condition 2 of the provisional consent requires the owner to obtain a minor variance to address the reduced minimum lot frontage or the requirements on the retained lands, and this variance must be in effect prior to final approval. The subject property is situated on an established residential waterfront community composed of single detached dwellings and vacation dwellings. The subject property contains a single detached dwelling as well as a detached garage and a shed. The property's dwelling unit and detached garage can be seen in the image on the right-hand side as I look towards the property. The proposed severed land appears to constitute a portion of a former road allowance that was at one time sold and conveyed to an individual lot owner, despite its location, which separates a number of properties from Kennedy Drive. Let's go back here to show. Oh, here we go. Oh, sorry. Okay, hopefully staying here. So as you can see, we have. Technical difficulties, I apologize. So here we have the retained lands, and then we have a severed portion that will be given to the benefiting lot here, and another severed portion that will be given to this lot here. This piece here is believed to be a former road allowance that at one point was sold to 149 Kennedy, which is why it now makes up that L shape. The reduced lot frontage will facilitate the two lot line adjustments, resulting in an optimized and consistent lot fabric, rectifying the subject property's irregular L-shape lot configuration in favor of a rectangular lot layout that improves the benefiting lot's access to an improved public street. From a siting and servicing standpoint, this extra land will allow the benefiting properties to support replacement sewage systems. Looking to the official plan, the waterfront designation permits residential and residential accessory uses. The subject property is an existing lot on record, and the reduced lot frontage will not alter the character of the established residential neighborhood. The reduced lot frontage will facilitate, like I said, two lot line adjustments, and it will bring the property closer to compliance with the transportation policies under section 28.6 of the official plan, by providing these lots with direct access to an improved public street. Section 12.2.1.2c of the zoning bylaw requires a minimum lot frontage of 35 meters for shoreline lots in the rural residential type 3 zone. A lot frontage of 24.38 is proposed. A zone category's minimum lot frontage aims to ensure adequate spatial separation and lot carrying capacity is maintained during lot creation. In this case, the subject property and the neighboring lots are already built out, and they have existing buildings and structures as well as mature vegetation and individual on-site servicing. The reduced lot frontage will not impact the existing services or spatial separation. Lot frontage also contributes to the lot character by setting out parameters of overall lot sizes, dimension, location, and the size of dwellings on the lot. The proposed lot frontage of 24.38 meters is considered consistent with other non-complying lot frontages in the area, which range from 21.52 meters to 35.18 meters. There are no anticipated impacts on environmental features, neighboring properties, or the function of the municipal right-of-way. Comments were received from the supervisor of Part 8 sewage systems, stating that the severed and conveyed lots will improve the benefiting lot's ability to accommodate replacement sewage systems. As such, the building and septic division have no issue with the proposed minor variance as it relates to the private on-site sewage disposal. Based on the comments based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of the minor variance, and staff respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Peck. Questions of the planner? Mr. Eric?
The 3 lots, we'll make it all 5, the benefiting lands and the 3 lots in between, are those all individually owned?
It's my understanding, yes, these are all individually owned lots.
One other question, is this a way to get around a plan of subdivision by not severing the other 3 blocks, but they'll come back later to do it?
Through you, Mr. Chair. No, this is not a way to kind of circumvent another Planning Act application. This is simply rectifying these lots' access to an improved public street. So right now you can see that these 3 lots are kind of impeded by direct access to that road by this parcel here. So it is a potential that down the road we might see another consent application come through where we would, sever that just little portion for these 3, but at the moment that has not been proposed, but it is a potential in the future, and these are already established lots.
Planner? All right. Is the applicant online? Does the applicant wish to speak to the application? Easy day. Is there anyone online wishing to speak in support of this application, in support of the application? Anyone online wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Opposition to the application? Being none, committee. Councillor Yeo.
As printed.
Seconder, Mr. Erickson. Further comments or questions with respect to the motion on the floor? All those in favor? That carries. All right, that being the last of the applications, we have no consents, no deferred applications. I would be remiss as the chair of this committee, and I believe I speak on behalf of the committee when I say to you 2 planners, I am absolutely, totally impressed with you. Your work and your presentations. I guess I could have said work/presentations. You are calm, you are cool, and you are collected. And as first-timers, I'll tell you, nothing but accolades for you. And I know, Leah, that you were instrumental in preparing these ladies and assisting them along the way, so very, very well done. Okay. Now,
Is that in spite of what I saw in the Committee of Adjustment organizations, advertisements for Planner 1, Planner 2 positions here that are available, that these people are handling the workloads of 2 others as well?
Sure, yes, Mr. Chair, thank you for the opportunity. The workload of probably 2 and then some. The team has been carrying quite a load for the past few years. In fact, midway through last year, the Planning Division had 8 vacancies that we were strongly pursuing recruitment on. We've narrowed that down to 5 vacancies at this point. We successfully were able to hire on a new policy supervisor and 2 new Planner 1s. Things are looking up, certainly, but we're just moving forward, especially with the Committee of Adjustment portfolio, to keep the development going, as they say. In addition to sort of these ongoing recruitment efforts, of course, that's the long-term goal, is to have permanent staff join the team. But in an effort to address some backlog issues that are quite significant, the director and I were able to secure some external third-party land use consulting support near the end of last year. So starting this year, this quarter, we will be tackling some applications with the help of these third-party consultants as an effort, again, to keep things moving in light of the challenges that we have. Thank you.
Well, let's talk about you for a minute, because for a year, you are the manager, so you manage the place. you mentored the planners we have. I'm sure you were part of the process in trying to hire more planners. You visited properties, and then you made all the presentations to the committee. So amazing, that's all I can say.
Mr. Chair, I appreciate those comments very much so as well. Thank you for recognizing the work of the planners. You've heard me say this, but I'll never get tired of saying it. It is very much so a team effort, and we couldn't do what we do without the other supports that maybe are on occasion less acknowledged, but certainly our Secretary Treasurer and our today recording secretary, who also provides the administrative support throughout the rest of the month, in addition to today.
We have nothing but accolades for all of you, so very well done. Other business, we have the orientation package and terms of reference. Leah, did you wish to speak to either of those?
Mr. Chair, unless there are any questions about any of the particulars at this time, I don't have anything specific speak to. No surprises there. Perhaps to the benefit of our new members who are here today and who may benefit from a recording who weren't here, there is a training component to participation on the Committee of Adjustment. Last year, our existing members were offered and participated in that training opportunity, Truth and Reconciliation training. And there is also, although not currently part of the terms of reference, but is going to be amended, I understand, in a revised terms of reference for all committees of council to acknowledge the city's requirement to have this training undertaken by committee members. We certainly support the training component and encourage the members to participate.
Very good. I'm assuming everyone has had a copy of both the orientation package and our terms of reference? Yep, all right. Are there any questions of the manager with respect to either of those? All right, being none, I would like a motion then to receive both the orientation package and the terms of reference, if you would. So, Mr. Strangway, Mr. Erickson, all right. Any further comments or questions on that? All right, all those in favor? So I think from here we can unanimous and then received as well, sort of indicating that everyone's received a copy. Charlotte. All right. Is there anything further from staff under other business? Oh, anything further from committee under other business? All right, being none, I guess I need a motion to adjourn. Ms. Richardson, Councilor Yeo, all those in favor? That carries. Thank you.